slowly regained consciousness, realizing that someone was touching him and cursing at him, but he didn't respond. He had no idea who was touching him, nor did he realize where he was. From afar, he heard a voice asking him, "Man, what are you doing here at this time of night? The last bus left here 2 years ago." I heard the man shaking him urgently call for an ambulance, and then came the siren wail of the ambulance, which arrived in the glow of flashing beacons. He was loaded into the cabin, covered with a blanket that smelled of medicine. That's when the pain came to Brian. He was in incredible pain. His head pounded, throbbing to the beat of his heart. He didn't know what to do about it. He tried to slow his breathing, hoping it would provide at least some relief for a split second. As he dealt with the pain, he tried to get a sense of who was around him, but he was unable to do so, since he didn't have the strength to open his eyes. Brian heard sounds. It was the damned humming and whistling in his head that was driving him crazy. He could hear his heart beating and the way the blood pulsed in his carotid artery. Soon the car stopped. He was being carried somewhere. He smelled the distinctive odors of a hospital. He realized that they had stripped him, started taking his blood pressure, giving him some injections. Then there was a gurney on which he was brought into an elevator and taken to the top floor. His hands were bandaged and immobile. Brian could not feel anything, neither his legs nor his arms. He gradually began to fall into some dark abyss. When he woke up, he found himself entangled with many wires and tubes. The wires were connected to some kind of computer. The computer detected that Brian was awake and sent a signal to the doctor, who immediately appeared in the room, along with the doctor. The doctor smiled welcomingly at him and said, "We found your cell phone. It wasn't blocked. There we found the subscriber wife. We called her. She arrived at the hospital about 2 hours after your admission from the inoperable bus stop." Brian slowly tried to remember how he had ended up at the bus stop, lightly dressed for this time of year. Why had he sat on a bench waiting for a bus that hadn't been there for a long time? At the same time, he had his car parked in the yard, and his warm jacket lying there. He began to understand the reason for his behavior when his wife burst into the room and began to resent his foolish and unreasonable behavior. It was then that everything fell into place, and he remembered what he had witnessed on that fateful day. That day had been an ordinary Friday. Brian was at work. Everything was fine. At 11 o'clock, a transformer blew and the bosses decided to let the workers go home, since it was deemed unnecessary to keep them in the shops. Anyway, around 12, Brian put the car in the parking lot and went up to his apartment. While still in the parking lot, he spotted the car of his high school friend Lucas. And now, they were family friends. Brian's daughter Emma had been friends with Linda and Lucas' daughter Linda for 12 years. They were in the same grade. After school, they usually gathered at Lucas' apartment and did homework together. Lucas's wife worked at the mall as a sales clerk. Not paying much attention to Lucas's car being in the parking lot that generally belonged to their house, Brian walked into the entryway and went up to his floor. He opened the door with his own key, as he knew his wife wasn't home. She must be at work. He walked down the hallway, and there he heard a muffled conversation between his wife Sophia and his friend Lucas in the bedroom. "Sophia, I don't have much time today. I have a plan to fulfill. I think we can get right down to business, don't you? And I'd like to see you more often." "Lucas, you disappoint me. I can only see you once a week, Friday, and only once a month. The other days I'm busy. I have a job and a daughter to take care of. And for the future, you have to consider that our kids are getting older and smarter. I'm sorry. But in the future, we really need to be careful, and I have a plan to make today. And I'm only here because I know Brian doesn't suit you." "Lucas, that's not true. Brian is totally fine with me. I still don't know how you and I ended up in bed together. You should be ashamed of yourself for doing this to your best friend. And don't berate him. Maybe you're right. I should be ashamed. But I'm not. And it's because of how I felt about you for a long time. I, for you, would have left Linda if you just asked me to. You know I love you and I want to be there for you. but right now I only have a weekday. I know you love Brian, but I love you more than him. What started in the bedroom next, Brian couldn't look or listen to. So as not to do anything stupid, he turned around and left. He didn't take his warm jacket from his car. He walked slowly toward the highway. He reached a bus stop that hadn't been in operation for a long time. He sat down on a bench. He sat there, not noticing neither cars, nor passers-by, nor the cold. He stayed there until 10 o'clock in the evening, when a police patrol spotted him and called an ambulance. And now, Brian was just lying on the bed with his eyes closed and not responding to anything. Now that he was back in the land of the living, he needed time to realize everything and make a decision. That was why he ignored Sophia, even though he realized he couldn't go on like this for much longer. Now the woman who had betrayed him and their wedding vows was standing beside him as he lay in his hospital bed, speaking in a raised tone of voice. "Brian, you made me worry. You didn't call, and you didn't come home. I don't know what made you almost freeze to death at the bus stop. What is wrong with you?" Since Brian was tired of everything, he just turned away and fell asleep almost immediately. He woke up in the night and began to ponder what had gone wrong and why. He had never noticed anything alarming about Sophia's behavior. Sophia, after becoming a mom, was a stay-at-home mom until she was 3 years old. That being said, she had quite a bit of free time on her hands. When Emma went to kindergarten, she didn't immediately go to work and spent some time shopping or going to the movies with friends. Sometimes, they would go out in the evening if they wanted to see some movie at the theater. At the same time, always all holidays were spent in the company of Lucas and Linda. Brian fell asleep again. In the morning, the nurse woke him up to give him his medication. He noticed that Sophia was gone. A doctor came into the room, saying, "I signed your discharge papers. You can go home. But given that you have light clothing, wait for some transportation. Maybe your wife can take care of it. I don't know where she is. I'm sorry, but I can't keep you here. You're not our case. You should see a psychologist." The nurse added to the doctor who had left, "My wife left several numbers. I called them, but my calls went unanswered and went straight to voicemail." At this time, Adam, the foreman of the workshop, entered the room. He said cheerfully, "Brian, there's where you've been hiding." "Adam, where did you come from?" "Where? My wife works in the emergency room. She told me you were on her shift, so I thought I'd come and see you. I've been discharged. I'm wondering how to get home." "No problem. I'll drive you." "So, when are you coming back to work?" "I think I'll go to the doctor on Monday. I'll rest until Wednesday." Brian and Adam talked for about 20 minutes. He told the foreman what had happened, how he'd gotten to the hospital, to which Adam replied, "What a friend you have. I, for example, would have killed him right away. I would go to jail, and my daughter would be an orphan. What are you going to do?" "I'll think about it. But first, I'll talk to Sophia." The nurse came back and brought the papers. She said, "I'm sorry, but it's the weekend. That's why there's a delay. We don't discharge on weekends. You're an exception." About 40 minutes later, Brian arrived at the house. Adam said goodbye. "If anything, you know my phone number. Call me anytime." He went up to the floor, went into the apartment. Only his daughter was home. That surprised him. He asked her, "You're not at your girlfriend's tonight?" "No. She went to her grandmother's with her mom for the weekend. She'll be back late tonight." "Where's Mom?" "She said she had some errands to run and to see you at the hospital. She'll be here around 6:00 p.m. "That's fine. I'll change quickly and you and I will go to the mall. We'll walk around. We'll go to a cafe." "Great. I'm going." Soon, they were on their way to the mall. In the evening, around 7 o'clock, they returned home. The daughter was full of impressions. Sophia was at home, and from the doorstep, she started making complaints. "Brian, why didn't you call and tell me you were released from the hospital? The hospital staff tried to call you at home on your cell phone. You never answered. All calls went to voicemail, and as far as I know, you never called back. Sorry, I missed the calls. I forgot to charge my cell phone, and the battery died. And this morning I went to the salon, so I wasn't home. My daughter came over, she said. Daddy, you promised to see how I did my homework. Sure, I'm coming. They went into the room, and there the daughter suddenly asked, Daddy, is everything all right with Mom? I'm fine, daughter, you don't have to worry about anything. Brian checked the homework. He noted how neatly and correctly it was done. Then they watched TV. When Emma started to fall asleep, cuddling Brian, he carried her to her room and put her to bed. Upon returning, Sophia said, I need to get some sleep as I'm going back to work on Monday. Aren't you going to the clinic? Not yet. Tell me, what happened to you? What should I be prepared for? Maybe the doctors prescribed some pills. Nothing. I'll be ready soon, and I'll talk to you. I'm sleeping separately tonight, as I have restless sleep, and it's better for me to sleep alone. In fact, Brian realized that she had cheated. He needed to decide what he wanted, and what actions needed to be taken to secure his future, his daughter's future. Sophia's future did not interest him. It was a start. Brian woke up before dawn, showered and left the house before Sophia and Emma woke up, started his car, and drove to work. The work locker room was buzzing with excitement, everyone sharing how much fun they had over the weekend. No one knew that Brian was in the hospital. Shop foreman Adam had not voiced it to anyone, but asked him, Are you thinking of taking time off for overtime? The foreman remembers it for now, then he'll forget, and you'll get nothing. I thought there were orders. Brian, we've been working together for days. You know the annual overtime rate is 120 hours. You're getting close to that. File a report and you're out of here for a week. Brian thanked Adam and decided to see a psychologist. But in order to get an appointment, he had to make an appointment. Brian started the car and drove home. The phone rang. He looked to see if it was his sister calling and answered. Edith, listening to you. Brian, is it true you spent the weekend in the hospital? How did you know? Emma told me. I was just talking to her. They're having a competition at the gym near here. They're competing for first place tomorrow, but you probably know that. What happened to you? I'm better now. Don't worry. It's just that on Friday we had a power transformer fire at the substation. The bosses made a goodwill gesture and let everyone go home. When I got back, I found Sophia in bed in the bedroom with my best friend Lucas. They didn't see me and I didn't bother them. I just left. The tension was so high that I passed out, and the police picked me up. I spent the night in the hospital. All I had to deal with was hypothermia. Now I'm discharged. I took some time off and I'm on my way home. I can't believe Sophia did that. I always thought you two had the perfect marriage. Edith, so did I. It was a complete shock to me, and it drove me to the point of passing out. Now I'm deciding what I'm going to do and what I'm going to do, so I've taken some time off. I'm gonna take care of my personal life. Listen, don't do anything that could hurt you. Like what? See, you don't know. I have a friend named Chloe. She's a divorce lawyer. Is that the one you called Pumpkin when you were a kid? She's the only one of my friends who went to college and got a college degree. I'll call her right now to see if she can take you in. She's like a minister. Do I have to make an appointment with her? She's a much sought-after lawyer in our city and beyond. She's a divorce lawyer. Wait for the call. Brian decided to wait for his sister to call. She called back and said, Chloe is waiting for you at the office. The office is downtown. He's the only one there. I know, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Does she still have the same last name? Yeah, she's not married yet. Brian quickly found Chloe's office and saw her last name on one of the doors. He knocked and heard, Come in. He went into the office. Chloe was sitting at a large desk with some papers spread out on it. She pointed to a chair and said, Sit down and tell me about it. I have a new client in 20 minutes by appointment." Brian told Chloe what had happened. She also remembered his childhood friend Lucas and was surprised at how dishonest he was. She asked, "Do you want to keep the family together?" "Yes, for Emma's sake." "Emma," the girl grew up. "Tell me, can you handle raising her if she stays with you?" "I think I can handle it." "Good, good. We'll try to keep the family together. I think you should start by talking to your wife directly, without innuendo, but without any outside witnesses." "All right, I'll do it today. If it doesn't work out, we're gonna have to get a divorce. And I can't guarantee you that the court will leave the child to you, although her opinion will be taken into account. Here's my card. My phone numbers are listed on it, and in addition, there is a handwritten phone number that I answer 24 hours a day." There was some more advice on how to behave. Brian left the office and went home. He decided to talk to Sofia before Emma got back, since she was supposed to be at her girlfriend's house today. He needed more information than he had. Sofia was the only one who could answer all of his questions. When Brian arrived home, he noticed Lucas' car was parked in the parking lot outside his house again. He couldn't believe that Sofia had brought Lucas back to the apartment again after he had just gotten out of the hospital. Brian took his time, sitting in the car and gathering his strength. He was ready to kill Lucas if he caught them again. Got out of the car and walked up to his pad, opened the front door and walked in. In the kitchen he saw Sofia, who was sobbing with her head resting on Lucas' shoulder. It looked like Lucas was just trying to comfort her. Brian asked, "Lucas, what are you doing in my apartment at this time of day? You always said you had to make money and your car is idling." A confused Lucas recoiled from Sofia and replied, "Hi Brian. I just came by to see how you were doing. I'm sorry I didn't visit you at the hospital." Sofia intervened. "Brian, you're supposed to be at work. And anyway, I've been so worried about everything that's happened. And Lucas came to see how you're doing. I wonder how he knows you're not at work. And he couldn't call you or me to see how I'm doing. Or is his cell phone battery dead too?" "No, it just happened. I wasn't watching my cell phone." "What if there was an emergency order from the dispatcher? I'm not the only one in the trucking business. One of us would have taken the order." "Lucas, your concern for Sofia is noteworthy, but don't bother right now, and I'm asking you to leave us alone. We need to talk." "Of course we do. I'll go to the lounge." Lucas left the kitchen. Brian asked, "Sofia, have a seat. Anything that is said must stay between us. This is our marriage and Lucas has nothing to do with it. Lucas doesn't interfere in our marriage, and what makes you think I would involve him in our marital affairs? You involved him a long time ago when you decided to meet every Friday, behind my back, at our house. Now I see you're meeting on Mondays. What made you decide that? Who told you those stupid things? Let's ask Lucas while he's here." "Why? I saw it all myself. The day of my accident, I came home because we were let off work because of the substation accident. Guess what I saw?" "Well, that's a rhetorical question. Just witnessing your cynical betrayal caused me incredible pain. I imagined what would have happened if your daughter had caught you. It made me leave before I would have killed Lucas. I left and, I don't know why, came to an abandoned bus stop where I fell into a catatonic state and nearly froze to death as a result. I heard all about your plans to be more careful because the kids are growing up, and that Lucas would like to see you more often because of his great love for you. I guess that's why he's here today, huh? What do you say at work on Fridays? Going to meet your lover?" Sofia knelt down in front of Brian, cried and started wailing. "I'm so sorry, Brian. Please forgive me." At the sound of sobbing, Lucas walked in. He looked at the sobbing Sofia and asked, "Brian, what did you do?" He took a step towards Sofia, but Brian stood in front of him and said in a threatening voice, "Get out of my house. You are not welcome here. You, my friend, have been running to my wife behind my back, and I will not tolerate it. You are no longer my friend." Just because she's crying now doesn't mean anything. It's probably the realization that she's been caught. I never touched her, and I won't now. And since she's still my wife, if you don't want me to hurt you, get out of my apartment and out of our lives." Sophia, between sobs, said, "Lucas, go away. We did something stupid and I, by my behavior, almost killed the person I love and care about." Lucas reluctantly turned around and walked away. Brian went to the window and made sure he got into his car and drove away. Then he turned to Sophia. "Get yourself cleaned up. As long as we are married, Lucas must not enter this house. You must cut off all contact with him, which means you must not call him, text him, or meet him. But if, of course, you want a divorce, then you can go ahead. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. And what will you decide? That depends on how we talk to you and what you want in your life, and whether or not what you want is the same as what I want." Sophia went to take a shower and get cleaned up. Brian, taking advantage of her absence, installed a spy program in her phone. Now he knew about all calls to that number and all incoming texts. Moreover, he could listen to and record all the conversations. This program had been purchased long ago to monitor his daughter. He could always connect to her phone and find out where she was, hear all her conversations, and read her text messages. He didn't need the program to monitor his daughter. He realized now that it was unlikely that this long-standing Sophia and Lucas relationship would just end, and he needed control over his wife. Emma came in. Brian sat with her in her room and helped her do her homework. Sophia, who had cleaned herself up, made dinner. After dinner, Brian and Emma watched TV and Sophia went to the bedroom after washing the dishes. The next day, Brian slept in and wasn't going anywhere. In the evening, he called Sophia at work and said he would meet her at the end of the day. Sophia reluctantly agreed. She walked out of the office, approached Brian, who was waiting for her, and asked, "Have you decided to put me under control?" "No, I just decided that we, as loving parents, should go together and watch the finals of the competition in which our daughter is participating. Or do you have other plans for tonight?" "I don't have plans tonight." "And what is our daughter competing in?" "Basketball." "Basketball? At her height? She's got a great shot." They went to the gym. The entrance was free. They sat on the bleachers, and the female athletes were warming up on the court. Emma noticed them in the gym and waved. The game began, which was held with varying success. Emma was on the court all the time, which said that she was a valuable player. The final siren sounded and Emma and the team she was playing for won. After the awards, their daughter happily ran up to them. Brian suggested, "Emma, you get changed. We'll go to a cafe, sit down, celebrate your victory." "And where, by the way, where is your friend? Why didn't she come to watch the game?" "Dad, she couldn't make it. She's a swimmer and she's competing today too. Call her, ask her what her results are." A few minutes later, Emma proudly announced, "Dad, Mom, she won first place. And Mommy was with her at the competition. Daddy was working again." They went to a cafe where they had dinner, pretending, for their daughter's sake, to be a happy family. If Emma noticed some estrangement between her parents, she didn't show it. After dinner, they went home. Before going to bed, Emma hugged and kissed Brian and Sophia, thanked them for a wonderful evening, and went to bed. By 10 p.m., the lights went out in her daughter's room. Brian told Sophia that he wanted to surf the internet and retreated to the room where the computer was. In reality, he just needed to get his thoughts together and be alone, away from her. Sophia said, "You promised that you and I would talk things out." "Sophia, it's been a busy few days. Tonight was family night. Come on, let's put our problems aside and focus on enjoying time with our daughter. Tomorrow we can be reasonable and civilized when we talk. We need time to think about where we are and where we are going." "Okay, Brian, I agree. And again, I'm sorry about what happened." "I know you're sorry, but we'll discuss that tomorrow." Brian thought a lot about his marriage and his family. He made the decision to try to negotiate with Sophia, since marriage was a voluntary union of the two and she had a say in it. But in doing so, he thought about all the scenarios and how they would unfold. In any case, he had demands, and if Sophia did not fulfill them or refused to fulfill them, he was ready to divorce. The reason he made concessions was because of the daughter. He, having received clarification from Chloe, realized that there could be complications in the divorce. Early in the morning, he heard Sophia walk into the kitchen, smelled the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Brian got up as well, showered, shaved. He came out rested, woke Emma up, said to her, "Emma, you need to get up, eat breakfast and get ready. You have to leave for school in 45 minutes. What should I make you for dinner?" "Dad, make pancakes with raspberry jam for dinner." Brian went into the kitchen. Sophia was sitting at the table drinking coffee, ready to go to work. Brian suggested, "Let's go to the skating rink this weekend as a family." His suggestion was supported by Sophia and Emma, who came into the kitchen. The day was monotonous. Brian was doing something around the house. After work, Sophia came in. Her daughter had called before and warned her that she would be late at her friend's house. Brian decided it was time to clear the air with Sophia because the fate of the family was hanging in the balance, and he had no idea which way the scales would tip by the weekend. He was ready to fight for his marriage, but Sophia was going to have to go along with it. One thing he knew for sure: never, under any circumstances, would he agree to Sophia and Lucas dating. After waiting for Sophia to eat dinner, Brian walked into the kitchen, sat down at the table across from her and said, "I promised to give you a chance to fully explain what happened in our marriage. You yourself realize how unacceptable this is to me, especially with a man I considered my best friend. I didn't expect him to be so mean. Don't try to make excuses. I'm not considering excuses. I don't want to hear you say he's a really nice guy, or anything that could be an excuse. Lucas doesn't exist to me, so any defense of him will end this discussion and our marriage will be over." Brian finished his introduction, and after giving Sophia a chance to digest what he had said, took his time pouring himself a cup of tea before continuing. "If you want to stay married and keep your family together, I have a few demands that will need to be met. If you don't agree to them, everything will be terminated, and I will proceed with the divorce. I don't want to end the marriage and break up the family because I love you. You don't have to talk about loving me. If I hadn't caught you on Friday, this would have gone on and on. I don't want to do any more catching and fighting. I expect fidelity from you, as I expect from the spouse to whom I am bound. I have kept my fidelity throughout my marriage, and I expect the same from you." Sophia cried, and Brian added, "Sophia, there is no need to weep. I am simply stating the fact that you cheated and letting you know what I expect from you. This is in case we decide to stay married." Brian paused and said, "I want to express everything. So, let's not interrupt. I'm listening. Whether you agree or not, you betrayed me, our daughter, and our family by cheating with Lucas. And what you and my friend did to me is the greatest betrayal of all. It was a mutual decision between you and Lucas, and I thought of him as a brother, someone I trusted immensely. I thought of you as the loyal wife I loved more than life. But it turns out you both disrespected me. As a result of the affair, I received a shock that was almost fatal. I never imagined that my encounters with Lucas could end so miserably, and I don't want you and I to break up. Sophia, because of what you did, 2 marriages are on the brink of dissolution, and a friendship that lasted almost a lifetime has been flushed down the toilet. So my next demand is that you sever all ties with Lucas forever. You want his wife to find out. Why wouldn't I? Especially since he's gonna leave her. That's what he told you. As far as our friendship goes, he doesn't care. He's coming out of this with the least amount of damage. Do you think he wants you? I doubt it. He likes the excitement. I don't know what Linda will decide about him, but I won't get involved. And yes, I heard him say he wants you to leave me, that he's loved you for a long time and wants you to leave me for him. Yes, he said that, but I wasn't going to give up on you. In fact, I wonder if either of you thought ahead of time about the impact of divorce or divorces on our families. I respect your parents. It hurts me to think that I might lose the close relationship we have had over the years, the loss of friends, and our children. They'll be forced to live in a house with one of their parents, their father or their mother. The other parent will be seen on days determined by the court. In other words, family will be sacrificed. Sophia thought about what her husband had said as he took his time drinking the cool tea. She wondered how he could even think about saving the marriage. If he cheated on her, she wouldn't forgive him. The thought crossed her mind, you have to save your marriage and still continue your meetings with Lucas. She would just have to be more discreet, but the most important thing to her right now was saving her marriage. She knew that Lucas, with his erratic earnings, would not be able to support a family properly. So she squeezed out, Brian, I'm sorry I hurt you. It's just such a stupid thing to do. How did it happen? About a year ago, when you were sent on a business trip from the factory, Lucas came by in the evening. He wanted to borrow the drill you promised him. I'd had too much to drink that day. It was a girl's birthday at work. Emma wasn't home. She was at a friend's house. That's how it happened. Then we started seeing each other on Fridays, once a month. On those days, I let Emma stay longer after school for basketball practice and at a friend's house. But why did Lucas think you two were in love? I don't know. But our meetings went by quickly, and he wanted more. I wanted to end it. It was already weighing me down. So why didn't you end it? I'm sorry, it didn't mean anything to me. I love you, Brian, and I want us to work on our marriage. Please forgive me. I want to make up. When she was done, Brian told her, Sophia, I need time to think things through. I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days. I need to be alone. Brian drove over to his sister's house. She and her husband Victor lived at her parents' house. The house was spacious, and there was plenty of room for everyone. Brian also had a share in the house, but he refused to give it up. We sat down with my sister and her husband in the kitchen, and he began to tell us what had happened. Edith and Victor were shocked by Sophia's behavior. Brian added to his story with his plans for divorce, and they promised to keep it a secret. Then he called Master Adam and said, I don't have a week. Family problems need to be solved, but I won't make it by the end of the week. All right, you do it. I'll cover for you. Actually, Brian tricked Sophia into saying she had a choice and an equal vote, but he saw that she was deceiving him by saying that Lucas meant nothing to her. Brian decided to take revenge on her for the pain, the humiliation. Now he was thinking about how to get back at Lucas. But no plans were being realized yet. He just had to prepare everything and then execute. And for that he decided to meet Chloe once again. Brian discreetly visited the house and installed 2 spy video cameras for covert surveillance in the bedroom. The cameras were loaned to him by his sister's husband. Prior to meeting Chloe, he had listened to and recorded several conversations between Sophia and Lucas. It was obvious that they planned to continue their affair as soon as things settled down. Lucas, once again, professed his love for Sophia. In doing so, he said, Sophia, I'll leave my wife anytime if you leave Brian. Lucas, we've talked about this before. I love Brian and I want to stay married to him. But I can't give up on you either. I'm ready to come to you on our Friday. Our Friday is next month. Let's meet tomorrow while your dear is at your sister's. Where am I gonna put Emma? Or do you want to do the Korny Tchaikovsky thing? Korny Tchaikovsky's what? Suddenly, from Mom's bedroom, crooked and lame, runs out of the wash basin and shakes his head. Only my daughter, unlike the dirtball, will ask, and what was he doing there, in the bedroom at Mom's? We'll meet earlier, let's say 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'll make it. All right, it's a deal. And don't put the car in our parking lot again. After studying the notes, but not taking them as a basis, Chloe prepared the divorce papers. That same day in the morning, Brian visited Linda at work and told her everything. She was furious, and when she heard Lucas and Sophia talking, she asked. Do you have a good lawyer? Yes, I do. I discussed with her that you might want to sue too. Yes, I do. When can you go to the meeting? Right now. I'll just let the girls know I won't be there. Brian picked up his daughter from school, and they had a difficult conversation. He explained to her what was going on. Sophia and Lucas did not stay away from each other. As a result, Brian had a video of their meeting, since they decided that Brian would not be home, and he would not know about it. Sophia and Lucas agreed to meet again on Friday while Brian was staying at his sister's house. Chloe, who had connections in the court, persuaded the judge who accepted the applications to deliver the summonses by courier. She also arranged for the delivery of the subpoenas and accompanying statements of claim during the Lucas and Sophia meeting, which had a bombshell effect. Lucas suddenly had no desire to marry Sophia. He started yelling at her. You realize my wife is going to take away the car I drive, which is all I know how to do. You're no good at hauling either. You should sell vodka. You'd make more money. Angry Lucas went home, but there was a surprise waiting for him, in the form of his wife's brother. When Lucas saw his car parked not far from the driveway, he realized everything and didn't go home. He knew what this meeting promised him. Sophia grabbed her phone and started calling Brian. He answered. Sophia, I'm listening to you. Brian, you said you needed time to think things over and decide. And today you're sending me a subpoena and a statement of claim. That's not true, Sophia. I didn't send you a summons or a statement of claim. The court did. But my lawyer sent the statement of claim to the court at my request. But why? Sophia, you are nothing but a fraud, without any remorse or moral principles. Not only did you plan to continue your tawdry affair with my former friend, you couldn't even hold back long enough to try to save your marriage. You met him in our bed again on Wednesday, and today, as far as I know, the courier handed him the papers at our apartment. Now, I'm not interested in what you want, and all of our previous agreements are null and void. Brian heard Sophia begin to sob. Pausing, he complimented. See, you lied not only to me, but also to yourself, which is even more unfortunate. You decided I was a complete fool. You just realized that your Lucas was nothing. And now you're suffering the consequences of your choice. I'll get my stuff on Saturday. I'd like you out of the apartment. And I want to invite my daughter over for pancakes. On Saturday, Brian arrived at the apartment. Sophia was gone. The daughter was home. He asked, "Why aren't you at school?" "They painted the floor at our school with some kind of paint. It smells so bad they told us not to come today." "Fine, I was planning on inviting you over for pancakes in the afternoon. I'll just put my stuff together and we can go." "Where are the pancakes?" "At Aunt Edith's, where I live now." Brian quickly packed everything he needed and loaded it into the car. Emma got in too. Brian called Edith back, asked her to make pancakes. When they arrived, they were already on the table, next to the raspberry jam. They sat down at the table and talked. As they talked, Brian said to his daughter, "Emma, I'm not going to live at home. I filed for divorce from Mom. But remember, I'll always be here for you, and you can always call me or find me here." "Dad, I know. Mom told me everything." Brian tried to explain to her the reasons why he had to divorce Sophia. He didn't want their daughter to be angry or disrespectful to her mother. Finally, Emma informed, "Daddy, Mom told me that she doesn't want a divorce. I don't want you to get a divorce either. You can forgive her anything, right?" "I don't know, daughter, but I'm afraid that's not possible. Mommy said she'll do everything she can to make sure the divorce doesn't happen. It's all a big misunderstanding, and you're making too much of it. She told me that if you leave, I'll never see you again." "Emma, I'm sorry, but the problems your mom and I have are complicated. I'll talk to her when I take you home." "I'm sorry. I don't believe anything will change on my end. No, this has nothing to do with you. I'll always be there for you. You will see me often. I just won't live in the same apartment with you and your mother anymore." All the way home, Emma was silent. Brian was furious that Sophia had involved her daughter in adult matters. When they got back, he walked with Emma into the apartment. Sophia was home. She looked completely exhausted and haggard. Brian's first question: "I hope you're alone." "Brian, I told you it's over. Besides, Lucas is in the hospital. He was in a car accident last night, speeding into an abandoned bus stop, resulting in broken ribs, skull fracture, broken arm. There are other serious consequences of the accident. He may be permanently confined to a wheelchair." "And how do you know all this in such detail?" "Did you visit him in the hospital?" "Yes, but only because he has no one else. His wife and daughter abandoned him, and he's in a very bad way. Now you'll have to find a replacement for him." "I don't need a replacement. You'll keep the cripple with you. I see you're happy, and he's your friend." He was, but that's not the point. "We're no longer a couple. I brought Emma home. Now I ask you, why did you bring a child into our marital problems? She's too young to understand the dynamics of the situation. But I'll tell you, I'll see you in court." At the first hearing, a reconciliation period was given. 3 months later, the case began. Sophia tried to fight, turning Emma against her father. Her lawyer asked for an extension of the reconciliation period, but the judge rejected this motion and continued to consider the case. Nor did he accept Brian's argument that Sophia was taking advantage of Emma. Emma, when asked, said she wanted to live with her mother. In doing so, she accused Brian of breaking up the family. The court had no other choice, and custody of Emma was awarded to Sophia. The request for divorce was granted. 30 days later, Brian was a free man. A month later, he received a call from Emma asking him to pick her up from her mother. As it turned out, Sophia went on a bender, sometimes did not spend the night at home. In addition, in a conversation with her friend, Emma realized a lot of things. Emma apologized to her father, saying that her mother had deceived her because she was desperate to save her marriage. Epilogue. There was another court hearing. Brian took his daughter and refused to collect child support for Emma. His decision he explained by saying that he didn't want his daughter to owe Sophia anything. Lucas was left disabled for the rest of his life. Brian never visited him. As he said, Lucas no longer existed for him. Eventually, Lucas was institutionalized. Brian was always walking past the old abandoned bus stop where he himself had once almost frozen to death, and where Lucas had gotten into an accident. It was never torn down. Occasionally he meets Sophia in town and notices that she has aged a lot and looks terrible. He never had any pity for her, as she had behaved towards him quite unscrupulously and was now suffering the consequences of her actions. As for his later life, Brian never married.